Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. My name is Therese, and I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. I'd like to acknowledge that I am recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording. What does change management look like in 2026? This is something that we really want to unpack here, because what is happening is that change management and change in general in organizations, that narrative is picking up speed and momentum, because also we're heading into that really big evolution of AI and transformation that is going to bring to businesses via the tech landscape. And technology has been the driver of so much change, whether it be in a good or negative way from people's perspectives in organisations. And the way in which perception and even reality is managed is via change management. And what I mean by that is there needs to be a bridge between technology and the people aspect. All people use technology. We all interact with it. So therefore, looking at change purely from a tech perspective around functionality changes on systems is not sufficient. If we think about how change management works, or change works in an organization, part of having so many years of experience of delivering change in various industries, in various organizations, different teams, in different ways, is that there's this common thread. You start to think about this common thread and where change originates in organizations through a new strategy, decision making around what systems to change, what systems to introduce, decision making around teams, team structures, decisions around capability that needs to be uplifted in organizations, whether it be risk management, financial management, general leadership competencies. All of these different aspects are different types of change that can almost fly under the radar, but still need to be managed well. And why does it need to be managed well? Because it impacts on the efficiency of the organization and the running of the organization. And where I talk about leakage points in most organizations is because they might have a portfolio of work that isn't yielding the benefits they want, that isn't being able to be delivered as effectively as the executive teams would like the portfolio to be delivered. Some of that comes down to the ways of working. And once again, if you need to change your ways of working, you need change support for that to go as smoothly as possible and new behaviours to be embedded, and for that to yield the outcomes that you would like. So tactically in teams, there may be teams who are looking to improve the way they do things, and in turn, by even just having that decision made, the introduction of a form, for example, to engage with your team, to be able to scope out the work and then deliver that work, even such a small change still needs to be communicated to stakeholders, still needs to be supported as a practice, still needs to be understood how, at what access points to the team you need to update that information so that people engage appropriately, and it ultimately affects the ways of working within the team. Again, change, fundamental change of behaviours, fundamental change of ways of working, and to ensure that you can realise the efficiencies that such a process change would require, once again, comes down to having a plan. Having a conscious plan created to move people through that change, down to a briefing with your stakeholders, talking to your team, mapping out the process and the new process flow, testing it. And so much of change is about having a hypothesis around different success that you might have as a result of that change, having a hypothesis that you may want to have as a baseline or an expected anticipated result of the change being introduced, being able to measure that, and then see how that goes with the interventions and the different change activities that you put into place. Being able then to say, okay, well, we went and briefed our stakeholder team, we've having quarterly sessions with them. How are we finding that they're going from a maturity perspective? Are they always using the form, or are they reaching out to individuals still? Where are we as a team playing and feeding into that by responding to those individual emails and not providing the level of transparency that we need as a group? All of these type of conversations can happen, but it's a conscious, change-based conversation. Within meeting agendas within your organisation, I'm wondering how often change is actually put on the agenda around the capacity conversation. What are the priorities? How those changes are being prioritised and understood, making sure that there's no duplication of effort or effort going in a range of directions versus heading all in the same direction. And then what, from a change perspective, could be initiated around a forum where the vision is set, where the roadmap is communicated for your year ahead, and how that is understood, giving people time to really map out what that means to them and align their work in line with the priorities of your organisation or your team. And the speed to which you can do that has a lot to do with how effectively you manage and lead that change with your group. So certainly if you're finding at the beginning of this year that you're at the point of whether it's a half-year checkpoint, a mid-year checkpoint heading into the back 2 quarters of your financial year, or whether you're at the beginning of your financial year, dependent upon your ownership and your cycle, which financial cycles you're in, it is worth having that checkpoint. And if you haven't yet clearly communicated the priorities and the vision, you would want to do that and then reinforce that and talk about that consistently through the remainder of this year so that you get the outcomes that you want from a business perspective. It sounds so simple, and yet so many organizations simply don't do that. And if you have change maturity, or if from a strategic perspective in your strategy area, you have your change team sitting within that strategy area, that's exactly what they're going to want to talk to your leadership about, that communication of the vision, the priorities especially, so that that conversation can be maintained and updated throughout the year. I think one of the biggest myths about change is that the vision has to be set and the vision has to be clear. And that's actually not the case. In most changes, in fact, throughout the experience, yes, great and ideal if there's a clear vision or a clear pathway or a roadmap, but you simply need to communicate something that you can use as a basis to jump off from. And then from there, be able to manage the message throughout the year of why things might be delivered, why things might have been reprioritized, because we know that change is connected to external factors, and more than ever, people would realize this because of the COVID pandemic and the fact that sometimes there are things outside of the organization's control which impact the priorities internally. And in fact, that's an ongoing piece that most organizations could communicate, is a certainty with their team members, is that throughout the year, the priorities might change. These are the priorities for now. And let's talk about change in 2026 as well, in the framing of this is a cultural conversation. Now, for organisations who have had change in the program landscape but are still struggling with good change practices, or just a constant change that's happening in the organisation, and still seeing some of those engagement indicators with team members where they're starting to head a bit south, the key thing to talk about is to lift the conversation to be quite cultural centric about the type of organisation you're in, the values that the organisation holds, and the fact that change will be continuous, but it's about how we approach change to engage the team members better. And it could be different aspects of the ecosystem which do impact the effectiveness of change in the organisation, or the ability of the organisation and the individual to adapt. If you think about, oftentimes we talk about change in an organisational context, but the reality of change is we're talking about the individual's ability to adapt to the organisation's changing needs, and to the organisation in turn is changing because of the customer's needs or the supplier's needs or the economic needs and demands on the organisation in its entirety. And so even explaining those links in the chain, or the focus that if you're truly customer-centric, then you want to adapt to the customer's needs. In fact, you need to continually adapt to the customer's needs, and that technology advancements such as AI is just changing the customer's expectations. It's changing potentially the way the customer interacts with your organisation and your service model. And if you think about when in financial services, the services went from the branch, bricks and mortar network through to then being telephone banking, which many people objected to at the time, but then became the status quo of being able to call up, press a certain number, go through, check your balance, not have to go into the branch to check that. And that was obviously also before internet. Then the internet came to the fore, so it was online banking, and now it's mobile banking. So these changes that just come through, and it's almost good to get people present to that, because it's a real, tangible, real-world example in many countries around the change that has happened, where the customer has had to adapt, and the customers do adapt because they often have reliance on those services. Now, ironically, in their own employee environment, amazingly that within some organisations, the same individual who could adapt to different banking trends struggles within the organisation that they work with, and the change happening there. And you have to ask why. And part of it is because of the peer pressure potentially not being there, because of resistance, because of no forward communication that's going to happen, because of no respect in the process or even input into the process. And therefore there is just that disconnect that can happen. And it could be that there's a lot more to the employee's engagement in an organisation, which there absolutely is. It's not just about the changes happening to the individuals about a particular piece of change. So understanding that engagement sentiment across the organisation as you're rolling out change does make a difference around the approach and where you're going to invest your energy from a change perspective. So change in 2026 is going to be quite different, because the cultural context absolutely needs to be taken into account. At times when the global world is more volatile, there's more uncertainty, a lot more divisiveness than there used to be in society in general. It is important from a change perspective that inclusiveness and inclusive approach is taken more than ever to try and get through those barriers that are going to be there for change, and those challenges that are going to be there for change. Is how do you not exacerbate those issues which are more societal but can crop up within organisations because of people's fatigue generally, or also because of the own belief systems they bring into an organisation. These are the things that really will be more of the conversation in 2026 without doubt, as big change starts to come through with the AI landscape, but also obviously globally, the uncertainty that still sits globally is continually having effect on individuals. But rest assured that if you do approach change and upskill in change, it's coming more to be a absolutely mandatory skill set of good leadership, of good business management, of good innovation practices, and customer centricity. Change lends itself to all of those skill sets as well, and the requirements if you're going to become a high performer, or if you're really passionate about your job and you want to do it really, really well, then upskilling in change, either be within a project context or be it within a skill set that you're going to really leverage in a business as usual context, it's just going to be right up there in 2026. So if this is of interest to you, come to myvirtualchangemanager.com. It's what we're all about. It's about introducing and influencing for change with some really core skill sets and real core values of respect, inclusiveness, connected thinking, being able to generate change, being able to implement change, being able to embed change extremely well in organizations or within teams or across teams where you have influence but no control. This is what we're all about. So please come and visit my virtual change manager, have a look at the courses coming up. They are scattered throughout the year. We also have webinars. Sign up for the newsletter to keep across that so you can attend those. Just remember to hit subscribe, leave a review, reach out to us if you had feedback or a certain topic you want us to focus on. We are up for the conversation about change and all things change related. We're all about taking it to the next level. And why does change matter? Because your people, your organisation, your purpose, and you all matter. Thanks for joining and have a great day.